Hello, and welcome back to Legal Candy. I am your host, Attorney Candice Ross Colucci, and I am here with my amazing co-host, MK, our producer, content writer extraordinaire. And welcome back to today's episode, where we are unraveling the legal issues that you need to know to empower yourself so you feel like you've got the knowledge in order to really defend and protect yourself and all those other good things. That is our job here today. And as an attorney and as a paralegal, our job is to give you all that information that you need. So today's episode, we are going to be talking about flood and hurricanes. We are now well into hurricane season. It has been predicted that the hurricane season, this is going to be very active. We've heard this before, but as everybody has been seeing what's happening with natural disasters, it is really good to just remind everybody is you need to be prepared. It can come very quickly to your front yard and do massive amounts of damages that if you're not prepared in the event that happens, it is very shocking to say the least. If you bump into someone who's ever been through a hurricane or had a flood or any of those kind of natural disasters to their home that has destroyed their home, they know exactly what we're talking about, but they were not usually prepared for that before. And people who've never, ever been through it don't even know how to prepare because it really is mind-blowing what takes place. So today we're going to talk about some of those things. How can you best protect yourself in the event the unthinkable happens? What happens before, during, and after? And we'll give you all the kind of details that you need to know. So with that being said, let's talk about our legal disclaimer. The information here provided today is for informational purposes only. It should not create an attorney-client relationship. Please reach out to our office if you have any questions. Our office number is
727-733-9438.
Our law firm is Colucci Law Group. So if we can't help you or point you in the right direction of somebody who can, the information today is really just in order to empower you. So let's at least give you a little background of what our law does. So Colucci Law Group, we do specialize in property damage insurance claims. Before I was an attorney, had no idea what that meant. What it really means is that our job is to protect the insured, the property owner, after a natural disaster like a hurricane, and come in and assess their damages and then represent them against their insurance company to make sure that the insurance company pays the property owner all the amount that they are owed under their policy in accordance with their insurance policy. And as Mary Catherine is very well aware, we do this all day, every day, and it is shocking to say the least on how many insurance companies underpay, delay, and deny valid claims. It happens. We are here to tell you it is a real phenomenon. Because before I became an attorney, I knew nothing about this area of law. I didn't learn it in law school. This was something that I learned after I got out of law school and then became an expert in. I'm an expert trial litigator and then became an expert when it comes to insurance claims, insurance policies, all of those goodies, and a couple of other different areas. But I remember thinking that if an insurance company said it, it had to be true. If they put it in black and white, there's no way they would be lying to you. And I didn't realize how much of there's a gray area of what's covered and what's not covered. It is gray. You have 80 pages of an insurance policy, most of the time, on average, 80 to 150, that are filled not with what's covered. They're filled with exclusions. And if you don't understand what those means, it can be detrimental to your insurance claim and your financial pocketbook if you don't know what's covered or not covered. And so with all that being said is that it's not because I'm self-motivated, because I'm not. I'm an attorney in order to help other people. But I can tell you now with what I know, I have told family and friends, if you have an insurance claim, call us. Call us. Let us give you the information that you need. Let us help to protect you. And a lot of people are like, well, I trust my insurance company. If you want to go that route first and you want to work with your insurance company, and then if they're not paying you enough, you come back to us, okay. But I tell the people I love, listen, let us make sure you've got the right coverage before you start getting work done. That's a huge thing. How many people do we have that get work done and then find out they don't have coverage for it?
Until I came to this firm, I had no idea of any of these shenanigans.
Yeah.
I thought you had a policy, you had a claim, it was paid. That's it. I never knew the insurance company did anything like the kind of stuff that they did. I never knew that you needed somebody to advocate for you, to help you go over your policy, to fight for what you deserve, because they don't. They delay, they decline, and they underpay everything. And the client thinks, oh, that's it. That's all we have to do.
Yeah.
And that's why we give the free policy reviews, just to at least show them.
And free damage reviews, right?
Yeah.
We'll come out to your property and tell you, you don't have to sign with us. We'll come out to your property and give you an idea of what your damage is worth, to even determine if the insurance company is right. There are times we may say, listen, they paid you enough, you're good to go. It doesn't happen all the time.
No.
Doesn't even happen most of the time.
Those are quick claims that happen effortlessly.
Unless it's like a total loss and they pay out the policy limit, then we're like, yeah, they paid you what they were supposed to pay you. But unfortunately, it's not that way. And Mary Catherine is highly emotional. We'll just make it known, okay? She's got a big old heart. So do I. But I had to learn pretty quickly in my path to advocacy that you sometimes have to be real careful not to take on the emotions of your clients, because they come to you very emotional. And most people who've never been through a natural disaster can't really truly understand, because people think, well, you're alive, you didn't die, your pets are alive, you're okay, your children are okay, you're great, you have your health, you're fine. But what you don't realize is that, yes, they still have all those things, but your home, your possessions, that's where you've put majority of the money you've ever made. Most of the money and things you put into are going to be into that house that you're planning on as your biggest financial investment. Your biggest net worth is coming out of that home, and your future is in that home. And so when these type of disasters happen and the insurance company goes, well, we're just going to pay you $10,000, but your damages are 90, where do you come up with the $80,000 to get the work done? And that scenario, to tell you guys, is a common scenario we deal with every single day. And let me tell you, they'll pay $10,000. We get $80,000 on a daily basis. They'll pay $30,000, and then we turn around and get them to pay $180,000. And it's not based on fraud. I can tell you, our law firm does not pour forth a single dollar of damages that we don't believe we can stand behind. But I'm telling you, you can get your own contractors, and you can bring our experts out there, and they'll all sit there together and go, there's no way we can get this work done for $10,000. And if you don't have someone to advocate for you, go right ahead. Try to make those calls to the insurance company.
They'll just say no, and that's it.
And then they'll stop answering your phone calls. That's something that we see a lot. But it is life-changing and devastating in a way that's undescribable sometimes to clients we have that are so heartbreaking. So when Mary Catherine first started working with us, and this is always what happens. Anybody I've ever employed, from the very beginning of me starting this firm, the reason why I built this firm was to help people, because I realized there was such a need that so many people were being taken advantage of. We had clients that were committing suicide, committing suicide because of the financial ruin that happens when you start taking out of your savings. People know this. One of the biggest areas of disputes for husband and wife is finances. Financials.
They've gone homeless.
Homeless.
To being homeless overnight.
We've had clients who've had to sleep in tents, RVs outside their house for years in order to wait to get the insurance company. They've cashed in their 401k. They've cashed in their savings. They've cashed in their children's college fund. And then what that does to you emotionally creates a snowball effect. Not only are you living in a house that has mold in it, that now rats are now getting inside the house. You have that a lot. It smells like mold. It feels like mold. There's water damage.
Cat-free water.
There's contaminated water in the house. You can't live in the house, or you're living in part of the house. We've had that before. We've seen it all, and it really goes to people's kind of just out of sight, out of mind, who haven't dealt with it. But it's important that you understand the severity of it, because you want to protect yourself from it, and you want to have the knowledge of knowing, hey, there are people out there that can potentially help me with these claims. But yeah, so when Mary Catherine started, like a lot of other employees that I have employed, they were just like, oh, okay, I've never heard this area of law. A lot of paralegals have never been in this area of law a lot of times, because it's a very small niche area of law. It just really is. And so So it's interesting to see the progression when an employee starts, where they're just like, "Du-du-du-du-du-du." There's like, well, okay, all right. So the insurance company paid you. Okay, they paid you a little bit. Okay, they denied it. All right, okay, perfect. We're gonna get someone out there and we're gonna assess your damages, and then we're gonna talk to the insurance company and we're gonna get you paid. Okay, we're gonna work on that. So then we get the estimate of damages, and then you can hear, right, like when you start having those conversations with the insurance company, with the adjuster. To a degree, some of these adjusters' jobs are literally an effort to make you lose your mind. Like, that is part of it.
They do a great job.
It is department from department. One of the things they do is they change adjusters all the time. So, when you're making those phone calls to like 800 numbers, my nightmare is 800 numbers. Like, I don't want to call anything that has more than 7 digits. Like, I don't want to call none of that. So an 800 number where they answer the phone and you do this. Hi, my name is so-and-so. Here's the problem I'm having. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. After you talk to them for 15 minutes, they go, oh, that's not my department. I'm going to have to transfer you.
The adjuster's been changed.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to transfer you. They transfer you to somebody else who then goes, hi, this is Mary Williams. How can I help you? And you're like, I just told my story. I got to tell it again? Yeah, go ahead. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Oh, yeah, I can't help you either with that. I'm going to transfer you to somebody else. They transfer you over to either you get frustrated and you hang up the phone, or you stay on and you keep on going, or sometimes the phone just disconnects, right?
Oh,
and then
yeah.
You have
after you've been on for 45
billions
minutes.
of dollars that is made from the fact that
delay.
people delay. From that delay, the fact that you have given them the runaround from so much to where they either don't want to, can't, are saving their mental strength. They don't want to call anymore, where they give up. And they just say, forget it at this point in time.
The clients are exhausted.
They're so exhausted. So Mary
with
Catherine
this.
was always, there were so many times she would come, she would be like, after she'd get off the phone, you could hear her. She's so sweet, right? So she's on the phone with the judge, she's like, hi. This is Mary Catherine. Hi, this is Mary Catherine.
How are you?
Yeah, how are you? Oh, great. How's the weather over there?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I've got a client and she's elderly. We've got clients who have cancer. We have so many clients who have just compelling stories, right?
They're veterans, their children, single mom. Like,
Yep. Just in desperate need of this money. And she's like, and then all of a sudden you just by like a week into it, Mary Catherine's like, listen to me. And she's in my office, she's like, you're not gonna believe this. Like, Mary Catherine's hair is like all over the place. She's like, this insurance company, here's what they said. She's like, I'm so enraged right now. I'm so angry. She's like, you know what? I think I should just drive there to the insurance company's office and I'll just ask, can I talk to this person in person, please? I'll sit outside and wait. I go, Mary Catherine, you're probably going to get in trouble for stalking, harassing. But
if I could even find the desk adjuster.
If you can find them, right? And so these are tactics that the insurance company, and I guess I can say not all of them do it. I think at this point in time, every insurance company I've ever dealt with has a version of this. And it's very, very unfortunate because there's also a huge area of something called additional living expenses. And what that means is that if your house becomes unlivable, most of your policies will allow you to live somewhere else, but they will only reimburse you for it. So that means you're still paying your rent or your mortgage payment at your house. Then you're going to an apartment because it's unlivable, right? And you're going to a hotel, or you get an Airbnb or whatever it is. And then most people live paycheck to paycheck. So then they submit it to the insurance company and say, hey, I just spent $5,000 that I don't have for us to be living in an Airbnb because our house is filled with just water up to literally sometimes 10 feet of water we've seen before. And the insurance company doesn't answer the phone, gives you the runaround, all of that stuff. And it's devastating people who cannot afford it. And that is most of America at this point.
Yeah.
So that being said, that is what our office does. So if you need help, you can reach out to us. If you have questions, reach out to us. Let us answer your questions, especially if you're like, I'm not sure what to do next. So let's get into the episode and let's talk about flood. We're going to be discussing FEMA. So FEMA does the regulations a lot for the flood insurance. And what is the importance and what are your time limits? And this is mind-blowing. The time limits you have with your flood claims are extremely important. If you miss them, and it's a flood claim, you can lose
than wind,
all your money. It's different than wind damage. So what we've talked about before is that you have, most of the time on a property, you have two different types of insurance policies. And this is important. You have flood insurance. And flood insurance is when there is rising water. So that means the water is coming from some other area and it's rising up. And that is flood. Now, if rain is creating, if rain is just coming in through windows, or if rain ends up coming through
like your created opening,
like
or
your
something.
roof, that is all under a homeowner's policy, a general homeowner's policy. But if the water floods, so let's just say you're by the water, right? And there's there's a storm surge and it brings the water up, or it just continues to rain and it floods a lake, a pond, anything near you, and it makes the water rise up, and that's what comes into your house. That is all under a flood policy. And here's how it works, is that depending on where you live, every state has their different guidelines. There's guidelines that say if you're so many feet from a water source, an ocean, lake, pond, retention pond, little retention ponds, that you become a high risk for flood, you have a requirement to have flood insurance if you have a mortgage. So most mortgages are going to make sure you have homeowners insurance. Yeah, everybody's got to have one. If you don't, they will put one in place for you. But the flood insurance, not everybody is required to have that. And it is extremely expensive right now, especially in Florida. A lot of people don't have the money to afford flood insurance. I mean, sometimes it can be an additional $1,000, $2,000 a month on your mortgage payment, which is it's an insane amount of money for a normal residential home. And so that being said, most people don't have flood insurance. Unfortunately, they don't, because it's not a requirement. If you own your house, a lot of people don't have flood insurance. If you have a mortgage, and depending on where you live, there'll be a requirement to have flood insurance. So there's separate different policies. Depending on how the damage happens will determine what policy you're under. So we've got a recent hurricane that just came through. Hurricane Debbie. So this is our first hurricane of the busy season, we've heard, of 2024. Hurricane Debbie came through. We track hurricanes at our law firm because if you guys have remembered, we also engage in first responding. So there are hurricanes, depending on where they're at, that we will bring a team of experts out to the hurricane. During the hurricane, we ride them out in very safe vehicles that we have with emergency resources, and we bring water, gas, first aid kits, hygiene kits, blankets, towels, equipment, chainsaws, shovels, all the other things that we could potentially need in order to help people who haven't evacuated, because we know what happens after a hurricane or a natural disaster is that usually the emergency services are shut off because they've told you to evacuate, and we are the people who actually, I happen to live for this. This is one of my favorite things to do, is because I go into the storm. It's my favorite thing to do because I feel my heart breaks for the people who cannot evacuate. We don't have there's no resources that I know of right now that when you're told to evacuate and you have nowhere to go, no money, most people cannot afford to go anywhere else. And so most people can't afford sometimes to put gas in their car to drive to another city a lot of times.
They're always like, why didn't you evacuate? Why didn't you evacuate? They can't.
So many people, so many reasons. So I really am compelled to go and help people that may have not been able to evacuate and find themselves into really scary situations. And that's what happens when we go out there with our team. We are very much professional teams, qualified for things, so do not do that if you are not qualified. But that is exactly what we do in order to help those people who get stranded on the side of the road, who try to evacuate. A lot of people try to leave when it starts getting bad, and they get stranded on the side of the road because they'll have flash flooding.
Like
they'll
the
die.
elderly couple during Ian.
Yeah, we saved
and I saw you.
There was an elderly couple that had ended up getting stuck, and they tried to open their doors, and the doors flipped backwards. And they were sitting in the car, two elderly people with like 3 dogs in the back seat, and it was raining and pouring because it was like all the wind was coming to the side, and they were soaking wet. And so our team, we literally were going. We ride down roads looking for people who are potentially that need help, and we were able to help that couple and get them to safety. And there's been several stories like that, but it's very common for people to not leave and there to be
and
disastrous.
Then panic at the last second.
And they try to leave, and they don't think about what that looks like. Animals. We've been able to help animals. That's listen, you want to tug at my heartstrings. The dogs and horses before, like other things like, and I get it. When you get panicked and you're leaving, sometimes it's like, what can you bring? I mean, sometimes you can't take all 10 of your horses somewhere.
Right.
And then they get out. And so we have helped animals. So that being said, is that Hurricane Debby, it's a Category 1 hurricane, so we're not talking about Category 5, but it still is 100 miles an hour. That's an insane amount of wind. And what was the big result from Hurricane Debby was flood. And it was pretty remarkable in some of the areas that it flooded. And once again, unfortunately, it flooded some of the same areas that had been hit from several different other storms recently. So Hurricane Ian that hit the Southwest Florida, Southwest area of Florida, that was Hurricane Ian, and that was in 2022. A lot of that area got hit again and flooded again. And then you have Hurricane Idalia that was a little bit up north on the west side of Florida, and that area got smacked again. So it's very unfortunate because this doesn't look like it's slowing down at all. So what our job is to do now is to make sure that we are educating you enough so you know how to protect yourself and your property, because there is such a value in knowing that there's some type of security in the fact that if the inevitable happens or the unpredictable happens, then you know what to do and that you can at least potentially be on the road to rebuilding your life. So what that looks like, flood. First of all, what we continue to see with these flood claims is that everybody needs to understand how flood insurance works, is that they're very limited with the flood insurance. It is much more, a lot of people are under the national flood insurance, so it almost is, it's different than an insurance policy. An insurance policy is really like, they're going to cover a massive amounts, right? And there's pretty good laws sometimes about some of those insurance policy that says, hey, if this area gets damaged and you have to fix this area in order for it to match that area that got damaged, then all this area gets paid for, okay? So giving you an example, if right now you have wind damage and you're in a hurricane comes through, it rips off parts of your roof and water comes into the house, and the water ends up affecting a part of your wall. So you've got a part of your wall that has a bunch of water damage, or a part of your floor that has a bunch of water damage. Your insurance company in the state of Florida comes with something called a matching law. And what that means is that when they go in to fix the damage that water damage caused, they need to do whatever it takes in order to make it match the other walls, or to kind of take off all the area that would make sense for a contractor, which means if half of your wall gets damaged, we're probably going to take off the other remaining of the wall in order to make sure that it's all secure and that it all matches and all those other stuff, instead of us putting one type of material here and one type of material there. So there's much kind of, besides the attorney's fees law, which we'll talk about in another episode, your homeowner's policy has a lot more coverage than these flood claims. And that's important because when you have flood and you have flood insurance, flood will only cover the exact areas that flood water hits. That's it. So if your house ends up taking on water from flood, let's say of 2 feet, so 2 feet, the only thing they're going to cover is the 2 feet that the water hit. So that means with your drywall, they'll usually cover a little bit more than the 2 feet, just a little bit more. But other than that, they're not doing all the walls. They're not doing the top part of the walls or any of that kind of stuff. They're doing the area only that was hit.
They'll only pay for the part that was affected by the flood.
Directly affected by the flood. So when you get a mitigation company, because let's talk about the obligations that you have.
Right.
If you get a mitigation company out there in order to do a mitigation because you have water all in your house, the mitigation company can only touch the areas. They really need to only be touching the areas that were directly affected. But you also need to know what kind of policy you have and how much coverage you have, because that's another area that has been very dangerous sometimes, is when some people don't realize that they don't have enough coverage. So what can you do before a flood hits? Here are the things that you need to know. So what everybody should be doing right this second, I would tell everybody I know. I'll tell everybody.
Please.
Go right now. Use your smartphone. This is a whole different world we live in. Mm-hmm. Use your phone and go and take pictures and video of your entire home. Go stand outside and take pictures of the outside of every single corner of your house. Take a picture, as many pictures as you can.
Or
Take a picture of your
just
landscape.
walk through.
Take a picture of your dock. Take a picture of the boat. Take a picture of your lawn care furniture, your pool, all of those things. Go inside your house. Take
Your
photos
walls.
of each and every room. Take photos of all of the contents, your bed, your clothes, taking pictures of every single corner. That is how you secure the first part of your claim, is that you know everything you had, what condition it was in, because you've taken photos of it. Why is that important? Welcome to our world. Why is it important, Mary Catherine, that we know the condition of your house prior to a natural event happening?
Because we have to show the insurance company. We have to show the condition, and we have to show what has transpired, because they will deny everything.
What is their favorite
They
thing
will
to say?
deny
Pre-existing.
Pre-existing damage.
Pre-existing damage. They haven't. The insurance company has almost no photos of what your house looked like before.
No.
But they will love to say that doesn't look like it's from the hurricane or from whatever the storm or from hail or from whatever it is. They'll say that looks like it has been there for a long time. So if you have photos of before, at any time, if you take photos today and you don't have a disaster for a year from now, that's better than us
good.
having almost no photos, which is what ends up happening. The photos that we normally
That's all
have
the time.
is the photos that were taken during a pre-home inspection, which some people have bought their homes 15 years ago. And then there's sometimes photos online of when, let's say they bought a house recently, there may be some photos that show the property like online somewhere. But other than that, that is huge. Take pictures of the property and video of the property before.
That 10, 15 minutes will save your money.
Yep.
Save your house.
Making sure that you've got insurance coverage. That is huge. Making sure you have insurance coverage. Before a flood, be really cautious of if you're going to evacuate and have that plan in place. Like, what does that mean? Where do you go? And really doing the evaluation of if you can't evacuate, then what does that look like? Because if you are elderly, if you have pets, if you have children, you more than likely need to find a way to evacuate. But if you can't, we understand. But when a flood happens, yes, there's some flash flooding, which is why you should never get in your car. Do not make the mistake of trying to drive once the weather starts getting bad, because the flash flooding is a real thing, which means all of a sudden there's a wave surge. All of a sudden there's the way that it kind of like all of the water and damage starts to all come together. It will literally create a flood within minutes of you driving, and now you can't move at all.
And they say, what is it? They say, turn around, don't drown, or something like that. That's because you can't gauge how deep that water is.
People will try to drive through like puddles of water that they're not sure how deep it is, and then all of a sudden the car stalls out, and then the rain starts coming down even harder, and then before you know it, you're underwater. So that's really the stuff that you want to look for, is making sure you understand who you are, who your family is, and what's your decision on if you're going to evacuate or not. Making sure that you've got, which is always a good thing, is you've got non-perishable items. You've got water, you've got those kind of things in case there are instances, which especially with the flood. My first hurricane that I ever worked for and volunteered with was Hurricane Katrina. And so I can tell you there are people who get stuck on the roof of their house. That is real, or in the attic of their house. Unfortunately, there is a lot of hidden information, what happens after natural disasters. There's no real, like, you hear these things like, 6 people died during Hurricane Debbie. There's a lot of times local government are not reporting how many people were really, really hurt and really ended up dying from it. And I think it's because they don't want to scare the mass public, but there are people who have died in their attic. But sometimes you are stuck in your home in a raised area, depending on how much water happens, and for a while until somebody can come save you. Like, we've been able to save people before with boats before. Like, it's the only way to get to this person is you go to them by boat. So that way you want to have some type of food and water that if you're stranded there and stuck there, he can potentially get to you. We had, after Hurricane Ian, there were islands, Sanibel Islands, completely, the access to that island was gone. The bridge that accessed it was absolutely gone. Yeah, we got out there by boats to get out there, but guess what? All the food and water that was there, all of it was destroyed. The markets were destroyed, the stores were destroyed. So it was super important that you had non-perishable items just in case you got stuck there, because people were stuck there. So those things are important, that you've got all those kind of things. And then in the event that the flood does take place, obviously trying to get to as high as possible as you can. If you end up not evacuating, getting up off the ground, floors off the ground is always the better place to be. Is try not to be on the ground level. And so then what happens after? Because we are seeing all of the horrific flooding of the people's houses are destroyed, and there's not much you can do immediately after until the floodwaters start to go down. But then you're looking at your house and going, oh my gosh, look at all this damage. And now what does that mean? You have a duty under your policies to mitigate your damages. Yes. What does that mean? It means to make less. It means to not let them get worse. So, which means that if all of a sudden you're looking at your house, you never
came to the firm. I didn't know.
Yeah.
That
you had a duty at all. Yeah. That you can't just look. Let's just say that, just like we were saying, let's say that the flood happens, which it can cause massive amounts of damage. People think that just flood just brings water into your house.
Oh,
no. You have wind and flood that happens usually at the same time. That means that it's bringing debris, other people's lawn care thing. That's why we always try to tell people, listen, if there's a way for you to secure your lawn, your couches and your lawn chairs and those kind of things, secure those turn into projectiles during hurricanes. They cause massive amounts of damage. They hurt people. So as much as you can secure those things as possible, do it. If you can bring them in your house, bring them in your house. Try not to leave those things outside as much as you can. But those things start now floating in the floodwater and start now being thrown up against houses and cause windows to break, the pressure from those things. Also, as we know, it brings the most, depending on how close you are to the water, let me tell you something. The stuff that's in that water is just disgusting. There's dead animals, there is feces, there is all kinds of just vile material. Yeah. It smells like death.
It's contaminated.
So contaminated. It is very dirty water. It's different. So when people they think about the ocean, we go into the ocean.
Yeah, that's
not what it is. It's not just ocean water.
No,
it's ocean water that has come up, or rain. It has come up and it has literally taken all of the just bacteria material from around the area, right? It's taken all of those things, and then now it's all in this vile pool of water that is now just being thrust up against your home, into your home, onto people. It's not just ocean water at all.
And that's left in your house after the flood.
Left in your house. I mean, like talking about Sanibel Island, bless their hearts, because afterwards when we were there during and in the area, and then we were there afterwards for a really long time. And when you would go to some people's houses, the smell is just, it's undescribable. But then you would see just dead fish everywhere. There was dead fish in the tree. There was just dead animals all over the place, and they were just like in people's front yard. They were in people's homes. So it's interesting what all that it brings up. But so that being said, if you're looking at, we're talking about mitigation. If let's say that there is roof damage, and there's rain just like literally coming through the roof of your house, you can't just let it continue raining after the storm's over. You now have an obligation to make that less, or to make it to not where it gets worse. So which means you're supposed to have a company, all those roofers who go door to door and people try to slam them all the time. They're like, oh, they're frauds and all that stuff. Let me tell you something very clearly. Roofers have saved people's lives. And it gives me goosebumps to think about it. The reason why the rhetoric you've heard about bad roofers, are there some of them that are out there? Of course there has been some about, like any company. I mean, any company has some bad. But let me tell you, in my experience, especially with the roofers that we deal with, and you can always reach out to us and we can give you a referral. The roofers that we've dealt with, that I've been dealing with for years, and majority of them, they make such a difference in people's lives and a difference in the claim process. And a lot of times they are the difference between you getting your claim covered and not, based on they're helping in mitigating. They're helping to tell you that you have additional damages and making sure you get this, you get this looked at or this looked at, or just meeting elderly people. Like we've got roofers who meet husbands and wife are widows, lonely old women who have zero family, which those people exist, who are 85, 90 years old. They don't even know what number to call for their insurance company, and they will stay living in a house, especially if they're ethnic. Ethnics are just, a lot of times with those people, they will live in a house that's missing a roof sometimes, and they don't realize how dangerous it is for their health, and they don't think they have any recourse or rights. And a roofer comes and knocks on that door and says, listen, do you have an insurance policy? And they're just like, yeah, well, I called and nobody's answered and I don't know what to do. So I guess they're like, I'm just going to live like this forever. And they're like, absolutely not. I'm like, let's at least tarp your roof so it doesn't continue raining in here, because mold is real and you can die from mold. And we have had clients who come to us and that are literally dying as we speak, that they have gone to see their doctors and the doctors are telling them, you cannot live in this house anymore. And then they come to us and they're like, where do I go? If the insurance company won't pay for it, which a lot of times that they won't, where do they go? Because they are not supposed to be living at their house. And it is so heartbreaking, and our job is to fight for them, which we do. And it just doesn't happen overnight, but at least they know that there's recourse. But guess where most of those people learn that they have these rights from? Roofers, contractors. So make no mistake, when they come to your house, if they do after a natural disaster, talk to them, hear what they have to say. Let them explain to you how they can potentially help you. Because if you think that the answer is you getting on that roof and tarping it yourself, no way. It's highly dangerous to do that. And we've had clients who try to do that themselves.
And the insurance company doesn't like that either.
Yes. Yeah, they don't. And then if you think that the answer is just wait for the insurance company to come around and help you, listen, let me tell you what. If you need a tarp and you're waiting for an insurance company, there may be a couple people they're able to help, but it's not going to be the masses at all. And if you do not do some type of mitigation, we've seen it daily. They can use it against you and say, well, you never got a tarp put on this roof. So now, or you never dried out any of the water that was in your house. You never even mopped it up. You never got anybody in there to do any mitigation. And now all of it's worse. They do it every day. They can deny all of the additional damage that happened on day 2 after the storm when it was raining and you didn't have a tarp, or you didn't have someone board up your windows. Like your windows broke and water's coming in, you never board them up. They can say, well, all the additional damage when it continued to rain the next day or a week later, we're not covering any of that.
Yeah.
And you want to know who could have helped you? The roofer, the contractor who knocked on your door. So please do not, as we go into another hurricane season, please don't let the government, the insurance company, let me tell you, the government has told you that public adjusters are, what they say, locusts swarming. Horrible. Not true at all. I've been in this industry long enough to tell you, just like I'm talking about roofers and contractors, those public adjusters also have been instrumental in saving people's lives. And that's how serious I say it now. Saving their life. I used to just be, well, they're going to help save your property. They save your life, your future. Like this can be a snowball effect to actually leading to people, like we said before, committing suicide, getting COPD from the damage that happens from the mold, from dying from the mold damage, financially ruined, where your life falls apart, your children, you're divorced, and then you're depressed, then you want to commit suicide. It's that serious, and I can say it because I've been in this industry long enough. And lawyers, public adjusters, roofers, and contractors, those 4 peoples have made so many differences in so many people's lives to make sure. And they're first responders.
Many of them are contracted with FEMA.
Yeah.
Like Emmanuel, to go out there after a storm.
Yeah,
you know, it's...
So if you have damage and you need some assistance, please reach out to us. Not only can we help you with the insurance claim process, but we do have referrals. We can give you the people that we've worked with that are contractors, public adjusters, roofers. Do not let the rhetoric that you've heard shy you away from getting the help that you need, because this is what we've heard over and over again. But guess where it's coming from? The insurance companies. Guess what they don't want you to do? They don't want you to have a roofer, public adjuster, attorney, or a contractor. And why? Why do you think that? It's because they don't want you to know the extent of your damages. I won't say every insurance company, but most of them. They don't want you to know the extent of
they
your
don't wanna
damages.
pay.
Yeah.
They're in
But if
business.
you think about it, it's like we have all learned at this point in time that they have people working on their side. The insurance company has their own experts. You should have yours. That's what I'm telling you. And if you use your common sense, don't listen to what you've heard from any other source when they say, don't answer the door to any of those people. Don't talk to them, da 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 da. And then people get an attitude about it. I'm like, I don't know. You need help. You need help. And if you think your help is only going to come from the insurance company, you're going to be sadly mistaken. And if you're not sure, reach out to our office and I will contact you and put you in connection with hundreds, thousands of property owners who will all tell you that the insurance company that they worked with did not support them and protect them the way that they thought they would,
Ever.
didn't pay for their claim, and luckily they met the right team of people who were able to help fight for them.
Because it does take a team. It does.
Absolutely. And it takes a team.
They can't do it on
and
their
it takes
own.
insane patience, right? You've got to have patience in these things. And it's just, it really is, it's just remarkable because like Mary Catherine was saying is that until we got into this industry, I would not have known. I probably would have done the same thing. If after a hurricane, if someone came knocked on my door and was like, hey, we can help you. Let me get on your roof. I would have been like, well, I've called my insurance company. No, sir.
I know.
My
Get
insurance
away.
company's going to be here soon. I'm waiting for them. And they're going to send out an adjuster right now, and they're going to make sure that I'm taken care of.
And
Guys,
then the adjuster shows up on a motorcycle with a cell phone.
yeah,
Like,
take a picture
how
with
many
no
times
ladder.
do we hear
To get
that?
on a roof.
It's
no
contracted
ladder,
by the
can't get on the
insurance
roof,
company.
afraid of an attic. I mean, we've heard all the different things that some of these insurance
It's
adjusters
egregious.
do. So it's not everybody. So like I
No.
said, it's not all insurance
No.
companies, it's not all adjusters, but I am of the opinion, based on my experience in this industry, that you need a team, and you to just
Absolutely.
rely on the insurance company alone is more than likely most of the time going to be some sort of mistake because we're watching it being used against the property owner. And I could sit here all day and explain to you example after example after an example when people relied upon the fact that they were like, well, I'll just rely on my insurance company. And then they do things and then all of a sudden they find out that it absolutely gets used against them. So, and documentation. The team, like if we went out there or a public adjuster or, contractor, especially if they have dealt with insurance claims before, which most of them will. If they're coming to your house after a natural disaster, they usually have dealt with insurance claims to some degree, and they know how to document damages. Documentation, document. Documentation of your damages is so important because we want to show what it looked like arguably before the disaster. If you took those photos that we talk about,
So is that what you mean by documentation of damages? Photographs.
Photographs and video, those are great. But also, right after the storm, some of the people that are part of these teams, when they come out to your property, they also will document the way the property looks like right afterwards. They're going to take not just photos and videos, but here's the things people don't ever think about. Moisture readings. Moisture readings are, a lot of contractors have them. Our office has them. There's some public adjusters that have them.
Those
Why it's so
meters,
important, It will record and measure how much moisture, water, is behind a wall. And that is humongous to know because guess what? It could eventually dry. So by the insurance company, they come out 2 weeks later. We've had homes before that have taken on feet of water, like several feet of water. And literally, by the time the insurance company comes, there's no visible water anywhere. And you know what the insurance company's like? Well, I mean, I don't know where the damage is here. You're going to have to show me the damage.
Water.
And you're like, and you go over to your wall and you're like, well, there was damage on this wall. And they're like, well, I don't see any damage now. But guess what? If after the hurricane, when one of those contractors that came to your house and said, hey, I'll help you, I'll document your damages. It is so important to have that documentation because I deal with it every day where it's being used against them, that they're going, well, how do I know how wet these walls were before? And even though they've dried now, the fact that it was Category 3, which is contaminated water that came into your house and went behind those walls, even though it's dry now, those walls have got to come down. It will eventually turn into the worst type of mold that you're not going to be able to live in at
But
some
if you
point in
don't
time.
have that documented,
Yeah.
they can deny
They
it,
love
and then
saying,
you're
yeah,
responsible for it.
Yeah. There's sometimes other ways to show that there was that much water damage, but there's a lot of times that there's not. If the water comes through the ceiling, like it's difficult to tell where all the water went unless it's very visible. But sometimes it'll dry and you don't know. So don't be afraid of the teams that may come to your house, but also remember you can reach out to our office, ask us. If you're going to sign a contract, you can always reach out to us. Reach out to us. We will review it. We absolutely review it and go, hey, here's what it means if you sign this. Here's what this says and all those other stuff. But it is important for you to understand your policy because there are times when someone may come to your house and they may want to do work that's not covered. That's why it's a team. Reach out to a law firm. The very few of us that are still in the industry at this point, because of the unfortunate changes in the law that just recently happened, there are a lot of attorneys who do what I do who are no longer in this area of law, which is devastating to what may potentially happen with further natural disasters. There's not going to be enough resources. So do not be afraid.
Add how confusing and cryptic those policies are.
Oh, yeah,
For
right?
a layman or like some for
Even
me
for
to read.
lawyers. But it's
We need, sometimes it takes four of us,
absolutely shocking about how difficult it is to read
and
these
they
policies.
do it. They make it like that on
I
purpose.
believe a lot of times that they do.
You know,
They do. And like we were saying, your whole policy, all those pages are filled with exclusions. The first 2 pages is what says, hey,
They make it look
we
all
cover
happy.
this, we cover this, and then
Yeah.
we're going to proceed for the next
Not-
962 pages to say not. Here's an exclusion, here's an exclusion, here's an exclusion.
It's so funny,
A lot of people have exclusions for, especially in Florida, there's a lot of exclusions for things like your pool cage, your dock, those kind of things. There's a lot of exclusions for that. There's a lot of limitations on the other structures, which would be like a detached garage or a mother-in-law suite back there, or potentially a
Screening,
garage out
just,
there or
yeah.
storage out there. There's a lot of limitations on that. There's a lot of limitations on tree removal, please. A lot of these policies only cover $500 in total for tree removals. So, and imagine that. Like, most of the time when these damages happen, there's trees all down all over the place and they end up on your home, on your car, blocking all those areas. And there is usually a limitation in the policy. So like I said, you can call us. We will do a policy review and help you in any way that we can. The most important part for flood insurance, we're talking about afterwards. So you documented your damages. You've tried to mitigate your damages. You have the right team. You're good to go. Why it also matters so much. There is a requirement when it comes to in general, these flood policies, that you have to file something called a proof of loss within 60 days from the date of loss, which means the date of damage, like the date of the hurricane, any of those things, a clock starts ticking. And that's when you're trying to put your life back together. You're already under a deadline, which means in 60 days, you have to submit a document. It's usually 1 or 2 pages, and it's called a proof of loss. And what it means is you're filling out information that pretty much asks you your name, your policy number, your claim number, and then it's asking, what is the approximate valuation of your damages?
Mm-hmm.
It's asking you, homeowner, what is the
And I
value of your
never thought
damages?
you don't think you have to do anything.
Yeah.
The insurance company's going to come and
Yeah.
figure it out.
Yeah, you would
right?
think,
But you have to do this.
you have to absolutely
Fine.
do this.
Mhm.
And now, if you think about it, if you've just scurried off lawyers, public adjusters, contractors, roofers, how do you know how much your damages are? Are you an expert in damages?
Yes.
I mean, some homeowners are also contractors, but other than that, no, you don't. So you have to put in your opinion, what you think the value of those losses are. If you do not submit that to the insurance company within 60 days, they can deny your entire claim, which is just, it's
insane.
ludicrous. It's
It
ludicrous that you should have to know what your damages are. It's sad. And another note, if you don't do a proof of loss and you just think, well, the insurance company came out 3 weeks later and
They
they
know.
wrote an estimate.
Yeah.
They wrote an estimate and they gave it to me and it was only for $20,000. But I know my damages are more, or you plan
Or what
on
if you
getting
don't
some, or you
know?
don't know.
Oh.
You may think, well, they already gave me an estimate, so that should be fine, right? That's like a proof of loss. No, it's not. No, it's not. This proof of loss is your opinionation or the experts you hire's opinion of damages, and then you sign it and get it notarized that you're saying that I approximately believe this is how much the damages are. Do not be afraid of any type of allegations of fraud. That's the thing we see is people are scared to sign something and have it notarized. It is okay. It is an approximation of what you believe the damages are. If you hire a contractor or a law firm, if you hire a law firm like us, we send somebody out there, we help you do the proof of loss. We put the numbers in there and help you do that and say, here's the numbers of the damages based on our experts, and then you sign it. Even if it ends up that your damages are potentially less because we find out something's not covered or something, that's okay.
That's fine.
It's fine. Let's say that it comes out that your damages are more than that. That's harder. That is very hard, and it could potentially be denied. So do not just rely upon the insurance company. These flood claims are serious. Make sure you have people assisting you and making sure that you're mitigating your damages and that you submit that signed proof of loss within 60 days after the flood that attests to what you or your team believes is the total amount of damages. And here's the other thing. They don't make it clear to you you have to do it. It's somewhere small in your policy. Maybe they send a letter and they kind of say you need to do a proof of loss within 60 days. Or like we were just talking, you may get the insurance company's estimate and you may think right then, it's okay. And you can't get a contractor or roofer to come out there.
Why can't they rely on it? Why can't they rely on the insurance company's estimate?
If that's enough, if they believe that the insurance company's estimate is enough. Is it normally?
Is it ever?
Most of the time it's not.
No. Because that's their job.
Trying to be devil's advocate here.
To save money. They're in the business of their bottom line. And to lowball everyone. That's why they need that second opinion. They have to.
Yeah, it is.
It can't be made whole without it.
Absolutely.
I don't see how it can.
Absolutely. So, and there is a similar requirement in a homeowner's policy. Absolutely, there is, but it's not as strict. Most of the policies will read things like, in 60 days you should do a proof of loss. And then sometimes, most of the time it'll say, in 60 days from when we request it, you should do a proof of loss, those kind of things. But there's some arguments to get around if you haven't done it timely. But in a flood claim, in some of these, and most, depending on who is your carrier for flood, you don't do it within 60 days. The federal courts will say, no, you've lost all of your rights, which is so scary. So the time is clicking. So what was the date on the Hurricane Debbie?
August 5th.
August 5th. So August 5th was Debbie, which means we're well into it right now. We're about 2 weeks after that hurricane and that flooding. And so you've got about a month and a half left to make sure that you've got all of your damages into the insurance company. That's crazy. Most people some people don't even get back to their home for a month. Like, they don't even have electricity.
That's why they need
sad.
They need these people to help.
It is absolutely sad. So it takes a village with these claims. So please reach out to our office if you need any assistance or any help when it comes to a flood claim, and understanding you have 60 days from the date of the flood to make sure that you submit on a proof of loss. It's an actual form. You can't just send an estimate to them.
And it has to be
notarized.
Work.
It has to be filled out and notarized, and we can help you in that regard. So at least it gives you some information. Our hearts go out to anyone who has damage. There are people who didn't have insurance, and we'll put some information up there for some of the the nonprofits who are actually helping those people. We are involved with some of them. We've got resources that we've given to several different areas. We've been out to several different areas in order to help people who have had damage after the flood. So please feel free to donate something to those people, because they've lost everything. They've lost their children's clothes, they've lost children's toys. Like, this water that comes in, people think, like I said, that you can just dry it out and you can use all the stuff that it touches.
No, you can't.
It's everything that it touches, majority of the time, it all has to be thrown out. You can't wash it enough. And so,
the insurance company mandates that too. That's your responsibility to get rid of that.
But to take the documentation before you get rid of it. Yeah. Yes. A lot of times the insurance company will say, you got to get it out of your house or it continues. If you keep this contaminated furniture in your house, it can continue to grow mold, and then it can actually start contaminating the rest of the house. So, but make sure you're really careful before you get rid of any damage. You have to notify the insurance company, right? So if you're trying to get rid of all of your furniture and clothes, I've seen them in the front of people's houses on the curbside. Please make sure you've given notice to the insurance company. If you get rid of it before you've given notice, they can use that against you because your policy says you are required to show the damaged property with when the insurance company requested. So if you've thrown it away and they ask to see it, you're in trouble. So
they need to take pictures.
They take pictures and video of all the damage, but then they need to let the insurance company know, hey, we want to get rid of this. We want to throw it outside. Can we throw it outside? If you don't get an answer for them, one of the things that we do is we do this. You'll say, okay, haven't received an answer from you. If I don't hear from you by 2 days, I will be forced to actually get rid of all of this stuff because it's going to continue contaminating the rest of my home and causing more damage. So that we've got little tricks of the trade, but we will absolutely help you. Just reach out to our office. Again, the number is
727-733-9438.
You can also send us an email at office@Colucci, COLUCCI, Law, LAW, Group, GROUP.com. Our website is www.myhurricanelaw.com. You can find us there. Reach out to us, and we will help you in any way we can. Please stay safe this season. If you need resources, let us know. Also, we like we say, we do first responding. We also try to get out to people who need our help, who are maybe stranded, and just stay as safe as you can with you and your family during this season. A lot of people have died during the Hurricane Debbie, and it doesn't look like it's slowing down. So we will be here throughout this entire storm season, because no one should have to weather the storm alone, and that's what we're here for. We are your village. Thank you.
Thank you.